Hey everybody, JoshKnighTheFirst here. Just got back from the theater where Kaylin and I just saw Attack on Titan Part 1. The movie has just been released over here stateside, but it's been in theaters over in Japan for about a month now. They should be getting Part 2 sooner than we are. We have to wait until next month on the 20th before we can see that part. But I wanted to go ahead and give you guys my initial thoughts on the movie as they're fresh in my head right now, so let's get right to it. So, like a lot of other reviews have said online, or, you know, whether they're talking on video or just typing it out, go into this movie, if you're going to see it within the next couple of days, with kind of an open mind, because this is, first and foremost, an adaptation. It is not 100% slave to the story that's been told in the manga or in the anime. This is its own separate entity. Now, as such, you need to kind of know that going in, because a lot of things are going to be different. A lot of things are recognizable, but not everything works, and I'll explain why. So in the first couple of minutes, you see that the world is different in a few minor ways, and it boils down to this. They've moved the setting from what's supposed to be post-apocalyptic Germany to post-apocalyptic Japan. So a lot of things have changed. Things look a little more, I don't want to say like steampunk, but I guess a little more mechanized than you would think. But they set up the tone early on that you're kind of in for in episode 1, where it's a land that hasn't had the Titans attack in about 100 years. You're introduced to your main three characters, Eren, Mikasa, and Armin. But there's some notable changes here. Eren's characterization, and yeah, I'm going to be spoilery because whatever. Eren's characterization and Mikasa's characterization are noticeably different from the anime and the manga, in that Mikasa here is not under the care of Eren's parents. She's more or less Eren's girlfriend here, and does that work as an adaptation, as someone else telling that story? Sort of, not exactly. It kind of falls short in a little bit, mainly because of the fact that Mikasa is given very little to do, and yes, she's a girl, a woman, a few words in the manga or the anime, but here she's just kind of there, and I know a lot of people are going to have a problem with her characterization, but if you take it as an adaptation, yeah, even then it's still kind of flat. Eren, on the other hand, they give him a different sort of motivation where he's not so much angry at being inside the walls. Like, he gets to that point, but he's more bored than anything else, and that doesn't exactly ring true. I mean, it's legitimate for what they're setting up, but it just doesn't ring as true as the anger he feels from being stuck and trapped inside the wall. Armin is the only character who seems to have any sort of family, and they of course get killed off once the Colossal Titan shows up. Now, when the Colossal Titan shows up, yeah, there's a mix of puppetry and CG there, which works for the Colossal Titan, that's fine. And then we get the initial attack from the Titans breaching the wall and coming in. Now, this is where you see some of the first problems that, you know, are noticeable to me. I get Shinji Higuchi's a big Tokusatsu fan, you know, of course he's working with Hideaki Anno on that new Godzilla movie right now, and I appreciate the care taken towards older Tokusatsu sort of ideals of they want practical effects where they can get it. The problem is, not all practical effects work. You kind of have to play with some stuff for a little bit to see what you've got, and I understand they kind of were working on a fast timetable to get this movie out, but like when the first Titans breach the wall, they do their best to try and pay attention to the way things look in the manga, specifically how the proportions are a little off on some of the Titans, and really the one you see noticeably that's very wall-eyed, you can kind of see the edges of where the makeup were covering up for that actor's face. And again, you know, props to them for getting actors to be the Titans. There aren't really any CG Titans. They're all people, you know, done up with makeup and different prosthetics. But they just don't entirely 100% mesh with the background of what's going on the ground. There's just this... They never cross the uncanny valley. They're just... You can tell what's in one scale and what's in another scale, and it never quite suspends disbelief enough, at least for me in that sense. And then, of course, you know, stuff gets set up. They flash forward 2 years to where all the trainings happened. They've got Eren and Armin in the Survey Corps, and Mikasa's been split up for them for, you know, reasons that they explain later on in the movie. And then from that point on, that takes about 30 minutes to get through. And this is only an hour and a half movie, so yeah, you spend a lot of time basically on what episode 1 was, and then you jump ahead to about episode 6, 7, or 8, somewhere around there. And at that point, you have to deal with, meeting all these other characters in the Survey Corps, and you don't really get to know any of them too well. You get to know Sasha a little bit, who plays pretty close to her counterpart in the anime and the manga, and then you've got Hanga, they've kind of messed with the name there, but her character is probably the one character throughout the whole thing where she escaped with the least amount of changes, if at all, save for her name. She's just as crazy. She sounds a lot like Romy Pak in the anime. She's fine. Rest easy if she's one of your favorite characters. But once we get to the Survey Corps part, and they have to, eventually go back to where the wall collapsed and try and fix it or check it out or whatever, the pace slows down so hard because they spend a lot of time trying to build up an atmosphere for this movie, and really in the middle is not where you want to build atmosphere. You want to build atmosphere in the first 15 minutes or so, set the tone, but it's here in the middle where they want to take a lot of time, and it makes the movie feel longer than it is, and I'm wondering why they decided to do that, because when you think about it, those extra, what feel like 10 minutes of dead time where we're just watching people walk around or, talk about stuff going on with the Titans, it doesn't really feel like it's adding to the atmosphere. It's just kind of weighing down a movie, not really adding to atmosphere. So if they were going to do that, what I would have recommended in their shoes was either to cut all that time of them just walking around, not adding much to the narrative, or replace that with something more like, say, a training montage for them in the Survey Corps. And this is something you notice once they get to about the third act of the movie, is that here, instead of feeling like a well-oiled military machine like the anime or manga, depicts them out to be, here they feel like sort of a ragtag militia. And I think that's kind of what they were going for, but it just doesn't sort of ring true, especially once they face off against the Titans again in around Act 3. The Survey Corps just basically runs. They don't attack back very much. There's a couple of shots to the legs or whatever, but then for the bulk of it, most of the fighting with the Titans is done by either Mikasa, who's back in the story, and Shikishima, who's the replacement for Levi in the story. And aside from dropping the whole neat freak thing and adding some facial hair, it's more or less the same character, but a lot of people I know really like Levi. And you might feel a little disappointed there, but he's more or less the same character. He just kills a lot of Titans. Mikasa's second in command to him in killing Titans. And that actually leads to a very uncomfortable scene between Eren and Mikasa, who have been separated by this point. They're not together like they were in the anime. They've been separated for a while, and then their reunion isn't much of a reunion. This is their rationale for developing the cold Mikasa that more fans are recognizable, or would be able to easier recognize. But here, it's just, it kind of leaves a weird taste in your mouth. I'm not saying it doesn't work, it just leaves a weird taste in your mouth. But for the purposes of the movie, fine. And then there's this little lull right before the action really kicks off where there's kind of sort of a little love interlude, and I think this goes to all the things that other sites have been talking about, where there's a lot of horror qualities to this movie, where the pace, gets to a certain point, lulls you into a false sense of security, and then bam, Titan action. And it's a little disconcerting for fans of the anime, because admittedly, there's a scene there between Eren and, I forget the character's name in the movie, but she's played by Ayame Misaki, who some people recognize from Go Busters, or Cutie Honey the Live. And it's between her and Eren, and it really kind of catches you off guard, like, whoa, why is this happening? And Kaylin will tell you, I was there in the theater asking, what is this mess? What's going on here? And then, oh, Titan attack right after that. It's meant as a false sense of security, and then, go right into Titan action. So that's fine for what that was, but still it felt a little weird considering which characters they chose to do that with. And then once you get to the third act, when you actually finally let the Survey Corps start using some of their 3D maneuver gear, but like I said, it's mainly Shikishima and Mikasa using it, It's better than I thought it was going to be, because I know I had a couple of concerns about that going into this movie, about the usage of the 3D maneuver gear, because you ask anybody, that's my favorite part of what Attack on Titan is. The 3D maneuver gear is something I really latched onto. And here it's not so bad. I just get that the choices they made specifically for the setting in which those fights happen, because you look at the anime, or even the manga, the fights mostly happen during the day, you know, so everything's well lit, or even at twilight, you know, there's a lot of yellow-orange overtones there. But here in the movie, everything's gray and dark and cloudy and overcast, and I think they made that choice to kind of hide the seams of the CG, or when they're obviously in front of a green backdrop and they're there trying to pose like they're flying through the air. And I get it, but as somebody who's aware of that sort of thing, I see through it. And I think to the average viewer, yeah, you'll buy into it, but it just doesn't quite ring true when I can't really make out a lot of the hits when they're taking down a Titan at the nape of the neck. I kind of wish it was better lit. And then once you get to the part everybody expects to happen when Eren becomes a Titan, it's all right. It's probably the best part of the movie, the best set piece. But the thing about it is, the last 6 minutes of the movie or so have already been let out online. So if you've already seen that large clip, that's the end of the movie. Sorry to spoil it for you guys, but they kind of already spoiled it for you. And that's where it ends. It ends right there with Eren becoming a Titan, taking out a bunch of Titans, and then, you know, Mikasa pulling him out from the dissipating body. That sequence is pretty good, fairly accurate to the source material before it. The only problem I'm having there is really Eren's head, where it's a good mask that they gave the suit actor, or whoever's there doing, you know, Eren's stunt work as a Titan. It's just not expressive enough. And that's something I liked in the anime, where you could really focus on the eyes and the mouth, and you could see there was an anger coming through, except the whole time it's kind of this... and it's very static, and it doesn't add to the storytelling very much. So that's one complaint I would have had. Maybe if they had had maybe a little more time, a little more budget to add some motors into that mask and make it move a little more than just the jaw. That really would have helped in that sequence. And then of course the movie cuts there, and there's credits, and then a commercial for the next part, which, like I said, comes out in a month from now. And unfortunately, that makes it feel like I've only watched half a movie. Like, it was like going back to the days when or really the day I came out of the theaters after watching The Matrix Reloaded, and I'm like, well, where's the other half of this movie? I paid for a full movie, I got half a movie. And that's really what it feels like. I wonder if it wouldn't have been better if they had just taken both parts and made one long movie instead of splitting it apart. And I get splitting it apart, you know, kind of, sort of makes sense to make more money that way. But in this case, I don't know that that makes for better storytelling. And really, I can only grade as much as I've seen. I honestly think that once the second part comes out, that'll help flesh things out. But as a movie on its own, this one set of events that happened within an hour and a half, I kind of have to give it like a B- on the adaptation scale, because it's not crap. It's not crap by any means. It's watchable. I don't know that it's entirely enjoyable, but it's there. It's not the worst thing out, but it's certainly not the best. I think it definitely needs the second part coming with it, because now I understand that a lot of the commercials that have come out for these movies, they've shown footage from both parts of the movie, so that really helped with me feeling like I've only seen half a movie. But, you know, it remains to be seen. You know, I'll probably do another vlog a month from now to let you guys know how that fits in with this part, how it all pans out. But this is just my thoughts, fresh coming out of the theater. It's alright. If you have the time, definitely there should be 2 more showings after this, on the 1st and the 6th, I believe. So if you have an opportunity in your area to go see it, I highly recommend you do, just to get the experience. There were a lot of people there tonight, a few people in cosplay. The atmosphere was fine, but as for the movie itself, needs a little work, but it's about as good as you can expect from what I'm slightly aware is a rush job. But that's my thoughts on this. Thank you guys for watching. I'll talk to you next time.